Okay, you got your NFL wide receiver ranking. You have elite, above average, average, below average, and trash. And this is ranking receivers based on if they're a number one receiver. So if even though a receiver may be a good number two option, they may still be in trash because they're not a good number one option. So you have your first receiver. I believe that's Brandon Ayuk. He started off really slow but picked up near the end of the season. He was a good compliment to Deebo Samuel, but he's not a number one receiver. I have him in trash. And I believe this is this AJ Green? I think that is, and he's washed at this point. He did not have a very good season with the Cardinals. He's trash as well. And I don't believe I see DeAndre Hopkins here for whatever reason, but if he was here, I put him in the league. Then you got AJ Brown. He's had ever since coming into the league, he has like 1,000 yard seasons every single year. And I don't know if he's elite yet, but he has been very consistent. Even though he has missed some game, I put him above average. Yeah, Allen Robinson, I believe he did not have a good year last year, but every other year he has been really consistent. But last year he was just not targeted a lot. He had like less than 1,000 yards, and he was just not a very good receiver last year. But overall, I still think he's an above average receiver. Then you have Amari Cooper. With all that talent on the Dallas Cowboys, I can see him not getting the ball as much. I think he had over 1,000 yards this season, and in previous seasons, he's also been very, very good. And as a number one receiver, I still think he's above average. Then you got, I believe that's St. Brown, the rookie from Detroit, I believe that is, though I'm not sure. All their faces look alike. And he had a very good season. I think he had like over 900 yards with the Lions, but but he's still a rookie and as a number one receiver. I put him as below average. And I believe that's Marcus Callaway. I think that is. I don't know. The Saints have a bunch of average, like number two or three receivers. If that's Callaway, I still say he's trash. Did not have he had a decent season, but not a number one receiver. Then you got CeeDee Lamb. I think he had another 1,000 yard season. He was great for the Cowboys. I put him in above average. Cowboys are stacked at wide receiver. I have Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool. He had a good rookie season, but he dropped off last season a little bit. I don't think he was even number one receiver. He was more of that deep threat that would get you the touchdown, but is not consistently getting the ball. And that way I put him in below average. Still a good receiver though. Then you have Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks. He has always been consistent. Every single year has 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards. Super underrated. He is super underrated. He has not played for good teams. That's why he played for the Rams a few years back and the Saints, but he played on the Texans last year. And he still had 1,000 yards. He has been very consistent and underrated, and I put him above average. Then you got Devontae Adams, obviously elite. He had another great, had 1,400 yards, like over 10 touchdowns. Him and Aaron Rodgers he's definitely top three receiver, if not the best receiver. Then you got Deebo Samuel, obviously elite. He had like a 1,400 yards and another like 300 rushing yards, and he had like 8 rushing touchdowns, a ton of receiving touchdowns, and this was just a breakout season for him. And it was just a great season. He had a good rookie season, then he got injured, and this season he broke out over 1,400 receiving yards. He was the Niners offense, especially in the playoffs. Then you got Devonta Smith, the rookie. He had a good season for the Eagles, and he had over 900 yards, like 5 or so touchdowns, and he was just a good receiver for the Eagles. He had a great rookie season, though. I think he's a bit underrated for a rookie season. He has similar stats to St. Brown, and I say he's for number one receiver as a rookie. I still say he's slightly below average. Then you got Deontay Johnson. I think he was the Steelers' number one receiver. I don't remember how many yards he has, but he had around 8 touchdowns. And early on the season he was better, and near the end of the season he started dropping balls again. But I say he's an average number one receiver. Then you have, I believe that's DJ Moore. I don't remember. I don't think he did much this season. But previously he had like back-to-back 1,000-yard season. This season, I think he dropped off a bit, and he, and I don't think he. I think he just played with bad QBs. He played with Sam Darnold, with Cam Newton. That's probably led to their drop off. I put him as an average receiver. Then you got DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf. I don't remember. I think he had just over 1,000 yards this season, and it was definitely a bit of a drop off. He wasn't. He was explosive, but with the Seahawks struggle, he just wasn't mentioned a lot. But he still had a very good season, and he was still had a very good season. It was just a bit drop off from his second year, and that mainly could be because the defense goes towards him. I still think he's an above average receiver, though. He was just a center point for many defenses. Then you got Chris Godwin. He was more of their slot guy. He had like over 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards before he got injured. I think he tore his ACL, so I'm not sure how well he will do tomorrow. But when he played, he was a great outlet for Tom Brady. He was always getting these first downs. He was super consistent, and if he played the whole season, he could very well put him in the league, but he's above average for now. Then you got Jamar Chase. He had 1,400 yards, over 10 touchdowns. The Bengals offense just went up because of him, and I won't put a rookie in the elite yet, since I don't think he's elite yet, but he's definitely top 10 if not top 5. So I've Chase there. Landry, he's the number one receiver for the Browns. He has definitely dropped off the last couple of years. He had his best years with the Dolphins, but once he was traded to the Browns, he's definitely dropped off. I don't know. Did he even have 800 yards this season? I don't remember, but he's a below average starting receiver. Then you got Julio Jones. He was injured for most of the year, and he was definitely a drop off year. And the last 2 years, he's missed a ton of games, but he's still above average once he gets healthy. Then you got Justin Jefferson. I think he had another 1,400 yard season, and he started off slow again, but near the end of the year, he just took off. And I think he had over 10 touchdowns. I don't really remember his stats, but he has had 2 back-to-back, like over 1,400 yards or so, over 1,300 yards, and I can consider him elite. And I still think he's slightly underrated because the Minnesota Vikings this year were just so I put him in elite. Then you got Jacoby. I believe that's Jacoby Myers. I'm not sure. If it is, then I don't know. He's decent. I don't think he's a number one receiver, but he's definitely a good receiver. I put him at below average. Then you got Cooper Kupp, elite. He had like 1,900 yards, like 15 touchdowns. I think he had 19 over at the end of the year, and he broke out. The last couple of years, he has been an above average receiver, getting over 1,000 yards every season. But this season, he just broke up with over 1,900 yards. Then you got, that's Marquis Brown. This season, I think he had a kind of an underrated season. I don't remember if he hit. I don't think he hit 1,000 yards, but early on in the season, he was the Ravens' number one receiver, and he was doing really well. And I don't know, near the end, he just tailed off and started slowing down his production. But I think if he eliminates those drops, I think he has potential to be above average. But right now, he's an average number one receiver. Then you got DJ Chark Jr. I don't know. Guys in Jacksonville, they don't do. I know a few years ago he had like 1,000-yard season. He had that good season, but lately he's just dropped off a bit. I don't know much about him. Then again, it's the Jaguars, so it doesn't get much attention. I put him at average. Then you got Mike Evans. He has just put 1,000 yards season after 1,000-yard season. Yeah, he has had 8 straight 1,000-yard season, and had another one. And I don't. He hasn't had that huge breakout season yet, where he gets like 1,000, like 700, 800 yards, like Kupp did. But he is very consistent. Always will be good. I have put him in elite. Then you got Odell Beckham Jr. I know not many people like him, but as a number one receiver, I put him as below average. Yes, I know when he was not good with the Browns. Even during his first season when he got 1,000 yards, he was not that good. And when he came to the Rams in the final 8 games, he only had 300 yards and I think 5 touchdowns. He was good in the playoffs, though. I'll give you that. He was great in the playoffs. was a huge part of their run, but during the season, he was more of that big play wide receiver. He made 1 or 2 big plays a game, but then he just wasn't a consistent factor. That's why I put him below average. You got Michael Pittman. Colts are not a pass-heavy team, so he's not going to have many yards. But he only, I don't know, I think he had 1,000 yards. I don't really remember. Like I said, Colts offense is centered around Jonathan Taylor. I put him in below average. Then you got Stephon Diggs. I put him in elite. I think he had another 1,000-yard seasons last year at 1,400, and he really helps Josh Allen, especially with the deep ball. And I think the reason the Bills have been great these past 2 years has been because of Stephon Diggs. Then you have, what is that, T. Higgins or is it Tyler Boyd? I think that's T. Higgins. If it is, I put him in below average. He had 1,100 yards, 1,100 yards. The only reason he's not talked about more is because he overshadowed. Actually, I'm gonna put him in average. The only reason he wasn't mentioned as much is because Chase had 1,400 yards. But even during his rookie season and this season, he has been great so far for the Bengals. And Bengals have a great trio of wide receivers. Then you got Terry McLaurin, Scary Terry. I put him in above average. He definitely had a drop-off year. I think that mainly credits because of the quarterback, the Heineke and Fitzpatrick. And I still think he's an above average number 1 receiver, even though he did drop off a bit during like his second year. I think it was when he had over 1,100 yards. I still think he's a great receiver and he makes the most acrobatic catches. Then you have Adam Thielen. He's not talked about a lot, but I still think he's above average receiver. I didn't hear much from him this year, but every other year he has been very consistent and been a good number 1 receiver for the Vikings. Then you got Jalen Waddle at over 100 yards, over 100 and 1,000 yards. For now, I put him in average. I think he definitely has potential to be above average. And he was a great weapon for Miami. And only reason I put him in average is his yards after catch was not great. And he mostly caught short passes, but that's what happens when you're the only receiver in the Dolphins. Then you got Keenan Allen. And another consistent year, I put him in above average. I think he definitely has potential to be an elite, but just not there yet. And he's always been consistent, always been a great outlet, a great route runner. And he's always going to get like 100 catches, over 1,000 yards every single damn season. Then you got Mike Williams, who I put him in as a number 1 receiver. I put him in below average. He definitely makes the acrobatic catches. I don't know, 800 yards. I don't remember. And I think he has potential to be a number 1 receiver on a different team. But until he shows that, I put him at below average for now. Then you have, I don't even know who that is, what, Jerry Judy, I believe. And I know, put him at below average as well. He just, the quarterback situation, I believe that's Jerry Judy. I'm not sure. It could be Tim Patrick. I don't know. They have Cortland Sutton, maybe. I don't know. But all of their receivers are pretty much the same. And Broncos don't have a true number 1 receiver. They have like 3 number 2 or number 3 receivers. Jerry Judy, he's been good. He has his drop. Cortland Sutton, he came back and he was decent, but not as good as he was like 2 years ago before the injury. Then you got Tyreek Hill, elite. And he has like over 1,000, like 200 yards. And I think what makes him such an elite receiver is he's not just a deep threat. Many people think he's just a deep threat, but he's actually like consistent. He catches the short passes, gets a ton of yards after catch, and that's what makes him elite. Not just like some of these below average guys like Claypool or Mike Williams just gets the deep passes. He also gets the short ones and gets touchdowns with them. Then you got Hunter Renfrow as a number 1 receiver. Hunter Renfrow is the number 1 receiver. I don't know how dependable he is, but he's a great top 5 slot receiver or top 3 slot receiver. He's definitely dependable, great safety outlet, great route runner. I put him at average. There you have my NFL wide receiver tier ranking.